For over 40 years, he was a ghost, a shadow that moved through quiet neighborhoods in the dead of night, leaving terror in his wake. Between 1974 and 1986, he committed at least 13 murders, 50 rapes, and over 100 burglaries across California. He had many names: the East Area Rapist, the original Night Stalker, the Diamond Knot Killer. But we now know him by one name: the Golden State Killer. It began on June 18, 1976. Rancho Cordova, a quiet suburb of Sacramento. A young woman reported a horrifying attack in her home. The attacker wore a ski mask, shined a flashlight in her eyes, and seemed to know the layout of the house, entering through an unlocked window. Neighbors had seen someone prowling the area for weeks on a bicycle. He threatened her family, whispering that if she screamed, he'd kill everyone. She was the first known victim. She would not be the last. Within months, the attacks escalated. 6 more assaults, then 10, then 20. Soon, a terrifying pattern emerged. The attacker, dubbed the East Area Rapist, was escalating, hitting every few weeks and getting bolder. His MO was consistent. He targeted women or couples in single-story homes, prowling neighborhoods for days before striking. He'd disable screens, unlock windows, and prep his escape routes. He would enter homes between 2 and 5 a.m., waking his victims with a flashlight and a whispered threat. He'd debind them with shoelaces he brought with him and place dishes on the backs of the male victims, warning them that if he heard the dishes fall, everyone would die. Then, he would spend hours in the home, eating their food and rummaging through their belongings. It was psychological torture as much as physical violence. He even made chilling phone calls to victims, both before and after the attacks, with heavy breathing and threats like, "I'm going to kill you." By 1977, Sacramento was a city paralyzed by fear. Hardware stores sold out of locks and deadbolts. Community watch groups formed on every block. Residents felt that locking their doors wasn't enough. The attacker seemed unstoppable. Despite hundreds of investigators working the case, he always stayed one step ahead. Then, he made a mistake. In December 1977, a victim recorded one of his calls. The audio was eerie, a high-pitched, almost childlike voice repeating, "I'm going to kill you." Experts believed he was deliberately disguising his voice, but they couldn't identify him. On February 2, 1978, he crossed a line. Brian and Katie Majori were walking their dog in Rancho Cordova when they encountered a prowler. They ran. He chased them and shot them both dead in a backyard. This changed everything. He was no longer just a rapist. He was now a killer. After the Majori murders, the attacks in Sacramento slowed. But he wasn't stopping. He was moving. In October 1979, nearly 400 miles south in Orange County, a new series of crimes began. This time, the assailant murdered his victims. On December 30, 1979, Dr. Robert Orferman and Alexandria Manning were found shot to death in Goleta. The MO was chillingly familiar: forced entry, bindings with shoelaces, evidence of hours spent in the home. But at the time, law enforcement agencies in Northern and Southern California didn't share information effectively. They believed they were hunting different criminals. The murders continued with terrifying frequency. March 1980, Charlene and Lyman Smith, bludgeoned to death in Ventura. August 1980, Patrice and Keith Harrington, beaten to death in Dana Point. February 1981, Manuela Withen, murdered in Irvine. Each crime scene told the same story of meticulous planning by a predator who watched and waited. The final known attack came on May 4, 1986. 18-year-old Janelle Cruz was home alone in Irvine when she was beaten to death. And then, nothing. The attack stopped. The Golden State Killer vanished as mysteriously as he had appeared, leaving behind shattered families and a string of cold cases. Years turned into decades. Investigators retired, and files gathered dust. But the case wasn't dead. A new generation of investigators, like FBI agent Paul Holes, refused to give up. The breakthrough came with a revolutionary idea from forensic genealogist Dr. Barbara Ray-Venter. In 2016, she proposed using commercial genealogy databases to identify the killer through his DNA, which had been preserved from multiple crime scenes. They uploaded the killer's genetic profile to a public site, GEDmatch, hoping to find distant relatives. It was a long shot, a technique that had never been used to solve a major case before. In March 2018, they got a hit. A distant relative. Then another. Using public records and obituaries, investigators painstakingly constructed a massive family tree spanning generations. They narrowed thousands of potential suspects down to a handful. Finally, one name stood out: Joseph James Dingello, a former police officer. He had lived in the Sacramento area during the East Area Rapist attacks and later moved to Southern California, matching the timeline of the murders. He was 72 years old, a retired grandfather living quietly in Citrus Heights, just miles from where the terror began. On April 24, 2018, 42 years after the first attack, the hunt was over. Unmarked police cars surrounded a modest suburban home. As officers approached, an elderly man, Joseph Dingello, stepped outside. He was frail, ordinary, nothing like the monster from the case files. When asked his name, he confirmed it. Then he was told, "You're under arrest for murder." Neighbors were stunned. The man they knew as a quiet, sometimes grumpy neighbor had been hiding in plain sight, one of America's most prolific serial killers. The news shocked the world. A former cop had used his training to terrorize communities for over a decade. On June 29, 2020, Joseph D'Angelo pleaded guilty to 13 counts of murder and kidnapping. For the first time, victims and their families faced the man who had destroyed their lives. One by one, they delivered powerful impact statements. One survivor said, "You terrorized me when I was 20 years old, but today, I face you, and I am not afraid anymore." Another declared, "We survived you. We rebuilt our lives, and now we get to watch justice finally prevail." D'Angelo sat motionless as the judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. After more than 4 decades, the Golden State Killer would never hurt anyone again. The case changed forensic science forever. Genetic genealogy is now a standard tool that has helped solve hundreds of cold cases. It proved that no case is ever truly cold, and that science, combined with relentless determination, can bring even the most elusive criminals to justice. Today, Joseph D'Angelo sits in a California prison, where he will die behind bars. The communities he terrorized have reclaimed their peace, and the families of his victims finally have answers. The Golden State Killer stole years, safety, and lives. But in the end, he could not escape justice. And that, perhaps, is the most important lesson of all. Thank you for watching. If you found this documentary compelling, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories. Stay safe out there.